More than 1 lakh security forces personnel deployed. The taste of India for the most powerful leaders of the world. Top world leaders will be in the national capital, New Delhi. But suspense remains on Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit.
The answer is I hope he attends.
All right, thanks everybody.
India's mission, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Namaste G20 is our top focus on India First. Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast on the G20 Summit. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This is India's presidency of the G20 and the countdown has begun for the summit. World leaders from the US President Joe Biden to Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, from Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to the French President Emmanuel Macron. Several world leaders including Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia will be here for the G20. India is also making waves across the world. India is making headlines seeking a permanent seat for African Union in the G20, talking about the digital revolution and how it improves lives of people. But amidst all this, there is also this suspense. Will the Chinese President Xi Jinping come for the G20 summit? The suspense remains. Of course, US President Joe Biden, he's reacted to this, hoping that Xi Jinping would. Let's listen in.
I hope he attends.
All right, thanks everybody.
Will you be going to Florida, sir? Are you going to Florida?
Thank you very much. I am going to Florida.
Thank you very much. Records. What do you
I'm going to Florida Saturday morning.
All right, thanks everybody.
So this very clearly is India's moment, and India emerging as a major player on the world stage. Is that making expansionist forces rather uncomfortable? Prime Minister Narendra Modi has repeatedly said that the world is large enough for all to grow and prosper together, and that explains India's civilizational philosophy of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. But is China not comfortable with this? Joining me on India First is Lieutenant General Satish Dua, former Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff. Also with me is a seasoned diplomat, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar. And Ambassador Sajjanhar, I want to begin by asking you, sir, what do you make of this suspense around President Xi Jinping, whether he's coming or not for the G20 summit?
I guess the Chinese are waiting till the last minute to send out this message, although we've had reports coming out of Beijing. And there is also circumstantial evidence that since the Chinese premier will be participating in the East Asia Summit in Jakarta, and so the same team is coming here for the security Rekhi, etc. So it appears that it'll be the Chinese premier who will be coming for the G20 summit, but officially there has been no word. So I think the maybe similar reason why in the case of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we decided to go virtual because we had, that's what's reported, we did not get a confirmed response from China on time. So here also maybe China wants to delay it to the extent possible, and the last minute maybe they will come out and say that President Xi Jinping is not coming. One of the reasons being that this maybe would embarrass India, that one of the big players is not participating. But, you know, there could be other, definitely other reasons for his not coming also. Gaurav.
Okay. Jal Dua, exercise Trishul at the borders, covering both the LOC and the LAC, with the Rafales, the Mirages, the Su-30 MKIs, the AVAX all in the sky. Is that standard operating procedure, or, you know, with so many heads of state, so many heads of government being in India at that point of time, our assets, their assets, they would all be looking at everything to ensure foolproof security. But what do you make of the exercise happening at that time, coinciding with the G20 summit from the 4th to the 14th, this exercise Trishul?
Gaurav, this is a summer season, and during summers, we carry out many maneuvers on the LAC. And these activities have been heightened since the last 3 years, ever since Galwan clashes happened in 2020. So, our heightened maneuvers on the LAC are given during summers. I mean, it happens from both the sides. It is not only to showcase our prowess or our platforms, it is also to actually carry out exercises, coordination, and live training uh, on on the actual battlefield, so to say. So,
Okay.
to my mind, I would perhaps not link it so much with the G20 summit or any other international diplomatic meeting that is going on. Yes, it is only natural that if we wanted to tweak the dates a little bit to make sure that it happens when everyone is here, so that we showcase and everyone looks at it. I mean, those are statements and signals that are being sent out.
Okay, Ambassador Sajjanhar, Chinese President Xi Jinping, he went to Johannesburg for the BRICS summit, but wasn't there to deliver that key business forum address that was delivered by the Chinese Commerce Minister. But there were some references, some indications that seem to indicate that tensions between the United States and China were high. The relationship is strained. The fact that some countries were being accused of stalling growth, ensuring the economy does not flourish, emerging markets do not emerge. Does that explain Xi Jinping's actions in some ways?
Gaurav, you've been dealing with China and Chinese issues for very, very long. And you know that the Chinese are very inscrutable. We could speculate, we could try to guess as to what is the reason behind the Chinese president or the Chinese state doing what it does. But it's very difficult to come to some, absolutely conclusive decision, even as far as our own, in April 2020. Why did the Chinese come with all these 50, 60,000 troops on our line of actual control? Why did they have to put in all these, heavy armory equipment, these aircrafts, base them so very close in gross violation, total violation of their agreements in 1993 and 96. So, about 10 reasons have been given, but till date, we have really not been able to decipher as to what exactly is the rationale of the Chinese. So here also, I could give you another 5, 6 reasons as to why, Xi Jinping
None of
did
them
not
seem
come
to
for the
make
business
China
forum.
come out smelling of roses or come, to appear in good light. Chinese actions, whether along the line of actual control in 2020 or the choreographic aggression of China, whether it's at the LAC or with Taiwan or in ASEAN countries. I mean, why would China do that with the whole world looking at China with suspicion? Ambassador Sajjanhar, you first and then General Dua.
I think China should be, the Chinese leadership should be writing a book on how to destroy friendship and lose influence in countries, because that is what they seem to be doing. Because it's not only India which has reacted very strongly against this cartographic aggression, but it is also Vietnam, it's also Philippines, it's also Malaysia, it's also Indonesia, all the big players as far as ASEAN is concerned. And they have come out openly and they have said that in the South China Sea, it is the UNCLOS 1982, those provisions should apply, and the Permanent Court of Arbitration decision ruling of 2016, that should apply.
Yes.
So I think by making this, and what, China has the audacity to tell India that you should not overinterpret, you should not overreact, this is a routine thing. Recall how China had reacted when India had issued a map in 2019 after we
Yes.
had configured the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And that was nothing new. It was only an internal reconfiguration. There was no impact at all on our external boundaries. And still the sort of vitriolic response that we had received from China. And right now, meaning they are hiving off 93,000 square kilometer of territory of Arunachal Pradesh. and they say that, you shouldn't overreact. And
No, you're
overinterpret.
absolutely right. I mean, General Dua, China can write a book on how to lose friends and how to lose influence globally. The world is looking at China with suspicion at a time when the Chinese economy is facing very strong headwinds. Is President Xi Jinping on top of the game at home? There are several reports. One, given the foreign minister had to be changed, given there are some fissures in the rocket force in China, General Dua?
Let me start by taking you away from this only to come back to it. When Russian President Putin says he's not going to Johannesburg or he's not coming to Delhi to attend these summit meetings, he has a reason. There is a war going on, and he says that because of special operations, my foreign minister will be presenting. For the Chinese head of the state to say that he is not going to be there, I mean, as it appears by now, they haven't said it so clearly. But if he does not come for a summit meeting, and that too, last week he has been already in Johannesburg, he has attended a meeting. So it obviously is a signal, is a statement, whether he's trying to embarrass India by not being there for this meeting, or he's trying to avoid a meeting with the American President Joe Biden, because it is largely expected that they'll come face to face. And so, or whatever else is the reason, it's a signal that he's sending. What does it show? Does it really show, and that's where you're coming to your question, is he on top of things, or is he behaving, or is China behaving like a responsible superpower that they aim to be? I mean, they have a stated aim to replace US as a sole superpower. So superpowers, big powers don't behave irresponsibly like this.
Okay. Ambassador Sajjanhar, should President Xi not come, does that take away from India's G20 presidency, considering, one, this isn't a bilateral, you have 20 heads of state and government who will be here. The fact that India's emerging as this voice of global south, India's talking about this permanent seat for the African Union at G20. All of this shows India as a rising global power and China as some kind of a sulking country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're very right. I don't think it's going to take away anything from India's presidency of the G20 because, right from the beginning, we have been saying that we don't want to focus on geopolitical issues. We don't want to focus on the politics of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as some of the countries want it to be done. G20 is basically an economic organization. And there are so many problems, economic problems and financial problems that the whole world is facing, particularly developing countries are facing. In the wake of COVID-19 for the last 3 years, in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, what we have been seeing, whether it is the food shortages, fertilizer shortages, fossil fuel, debt, rising inflation, supply chains, etc., that we need to focus on that so that we can give some succor, some relief to the developing countries. Now, if Mr. Xi Jinping was there, and I agree with General Dua when he says the focus would be on the bilateral between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, on the bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping. What have they said? What have they not said? What is the body language, etc.? And, you will be taking the focus away from what we wanted, that it should be economic issues, the expansion of G20 by inclusion of the African Union as the 21st member, etc. We want to focus on that. So I think the absence of Xi Jinping in that sense will make it much easier for us to deal with these situations. And I think he is doing us a great favor by staying away. Gaurav.
Okay, though remains to be seen what's the last word on that. But Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar and General Dua, as always, many thanks for joining me here on India First.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
With amongst the most powerful heads of state and governments in the national capital, the security is extremely tight. More than 1 lakh security forces personnel from the Delhi Police and the Central Armed Police Forces have been deployed. National Security Guard commandos, they've been deployed on top of vital assets and vital points. Snipers, helicopters, slithering down. A lot of exercises are being carried out. Unmanned aerial vehicles being used, jammers being used. There are a lot of no-go areas, and India today is crime team and our national security team brings you this report. The national capital has turned into a virtual fortress as it gears up for the G20 Summit scheduled for the 9th and 10th of September. Elaborate arrangements are in place for security of various heads of state and government attending the summit. The Indian Air Force and the Army will continuously monitor Delhi's skies using helicopters and drones. The National Security Guard commandos will be positioned close to vital assets and vital points at all times.
पूरा वेन्यू है प्रगति मैदान, जहां पर इस पूरे कार्यक्रम को वहां पर संपन्न किया जाएगा। इस तरीके की व्यवस्था की गई है कि वहां भी किसी भी तरीके की सुरक्षा में चूक न हो। आसपास चारों तरफ 1300 के आसपास कमांडो लगाए जाएंगे।
The NSG has also installed an anti-drone system at multiple locations. More than a dozen NSG commando teams have been deployed across vital assets in Delhi with snipers positioned on high-rise buildings. The national capital will be guarded by more than 130,000 security forces personnel, including 80,000 strong Delhi police. The Delhi police participated in helicopter slithering exercises to prepare its commandos ahead of the G20 summit.
इनको हम विशेष जगह पर तैनात करेंगे जहां पे जरूरत पड़ने पर इनको तुरंत पिकअप किया जा सके और उस घटनास्थल पर ले जाया जा सके जहां पर ये सुरक्षात्मक कार्रवाई कर सकते हैं।
Delhi police has also carried out aerial reconnaissance of the national capital using unmanned aerial vehicles. Delhi's Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena has assured that all security arrangements are in place.
सुरक्षा के बड़े पुख्ता इंतजाम किए गए हैं। दिल्ली पुलिस पूरी तरीके से मुस्तैदी से लगी हुई है और किसी भी चांस को छोड़ा नहीं जाएगा। हर तरीके से हम तैयार हैं।
Elaborate security arrangements in place. It's now India's time to shine on the global stage at the G20 Summit. Bureau Report, India Today. This is the year of the millets, and India is paying a lot of attention that world leaders, they get a taste of India. They get to taste what Indian cuisine is like, and from across the length and breadth of our country, from Ladakh to Lakshadweep, from Arunachal Pradesh to Gujarat. So when the delegates come to our country and they stay in some of the best hotels in and around the national capital, everyone's talking about what the rooms will look like and what the food would taste like. India Today's Shweta Singh and our team of reporters get you this report.
Over 30 hotels, more than 3,500 rooms. New Delhi gets ready to host the world's most powerful leaders. More than 10,000 hospitality professionals are engaged to serve delegates who arrive to attend the G20 summit. Luxury hotels including ITC Moria, Taj Palace, Blue Meridian, Shangri-La are all decked up to host the heads of state.
G20 का सम्मेलन भारत में होना हिंदुस्तान के लिए कितने गर्व की बात है और ऐसे में जब दुनिया के तमाम मेहमान यहाँ पर आएंगे तो उन्हें होस्ट करने के लिए, उनकी मेज़बानी करने के लिए हिंदुस्तान पूरी तरह से तैयार है। चाक चौबंद सुरक्षा होगी, एयरपोर्ट से लेकर के मंडपम तक वो पूरे भारत को, इसकी आधुनिकता को, इसकी सभ्यता को, इसकी संस्कृति की तस्वीरों को देखते हुए जाएंगे।
From comfort to food, Delhi's luxury hotels are leaving no stone unturned to give the leaders the best experience. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, a famous local dish of each state will be served to the guests.
लिट्टी चोखा अभी हम देख रहे हैं कि जो खास मेन्यू में वो रहेगा, पर भारत के जो अलग अलग राज्य हैं उनके डिशेस भी क्या आप मेन्यू में रखेंगे विदेशी मेहमानों?
हाँ जी मैम, बिल्कुल रखेंगे। लाइक हमने राजस्थान से गट्टा करी ली है, नल्ली निहारी हम हैदराबाद से ले रहे हैं, उसके अलावा सेपू वड़ी फ्रॉम हिमाचल से लिए हमने। सो हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हमारे जितने भी स्टेट्स हैं उसको हम शोकेस कर पाएँ।
A mix of Indian and Western cuisine is finalized. Many of the dishes millet-based, in line with Narendra Modi government's big push for millet. Taj Hotel's head chef Arun Sundarraj, who served several heads of states in the past, says all arrangements are in the place.
I would say तैयारी is very very strong. काफ़ी काम किया है हम लोग ने और काफ़ी टाइम से प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं इसके बारे में कि हम किस तरह के डिशेस सर्व करेंगे, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली वी आर गोइंग टू सर्व, हाउ डू वी शोकेस इंडिया। यानी कि इंडिया में इतना सारा खाना है, इतने टाइप्स, देयर सो मेनी रीजन्स एंड सो वी हैव गॉट अ लॉट ऑफ food that we would like to showcase.
The Lou Meridian too has a well-planned welcome prepared.
G20 की तैयारी आज नहीं शुरू हो रही, 1 साल से तैयारियां शुरू हो चुकी हैं G20 के लिए। तो बहुत ख़ास मेहमान हैं और हम चाहते हैं जैसे हमारे प्रधानमंत्री बाहर जाते हैं उनका इतना अच्छा स्वागत होता है, वी फील सो प्राउड अबाउट इट। तो हम चाहते हैं कि जितने हमारे गेस्ट आए उनको भी बहुत अच्छा वेलकम दिया जाए, इतना मेमोरेबल एक्सपीरियंस दिया जाए। एंड इंडिया इज़ नोन अतिथि देव भव, जो हम हर अपने एम्प्लॉय को भी सिखाते हैं हर टाइम।
Vishweta Singh, Anamika Gaur, Ashutosh Mishra and Shreya Chatterjee from Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
So the countdown has begun for the G20. The countdown has also begun to take India to newer heights. And this time, it's the Aditya L1 mission to the sun, the solar probe mission. And ahead of that, S. Somnath, the chief of the Indian Space Research Organization, he's actually visited the Sri Chingalamma Parmeswari temple and prayed for the success of this mission and multiple other missions that are to be launched very soon, including the Gaganyaan. I leave you with these images.
Next launch is this one, Aditya L1. What is next launch? Another one. After that launch is Gaganyaan launch. Gaganyaan launch will be a test vehicle launch. So it is getting ready. So that will happen mostly by October, first or second week.
Another one, sir.
After that we will have launch of GSLV Mark II GSLV launch for INSAT 3DS. Then we will have launch of SSLV D3. Okay. Then again we will have launch of PSLV. Then we will have launch of GSLV Mark III. Like that it will.
Once again, India Today wins Best Channel of the Year.
Thank you very much, viewers, for making the India Today group the most awarded TV news network at the ENVA Awards 2023.
Sun keeps the solar system together, from the biggest planet Jupiter to the smallest particles in its orbit. 4.5 billion years old Sun is a hot glowing ball of hydrogen and helium. Sun can accommodate 1.3 million Earths. From the powerful eruptions to the steady stream of charged particles, the Sun influences the nature of space throughout the solar system. Sun doesn't spin like, let's say, the Earth. sun is made up of super hot, electrically charged gas called plasma. This plasma rotates at different speeds on different parts of the sun. At its equator, the sun completes one rotation in 25 Earth days. At its poles, the sun rotates once on its axis every 36 Earth days. The temperature in the sun's core is about 27 million degrees Fahrenheit or 15 million degrees Celsius. It is so hot that it can sustain a nuclear fusion. This creates outward pressure that supports the star's gigantic mass, keeping it from collapsing. Above the sun's surface are its thin chromosphere and the huge corona or the crown. This is where features such as solar prominences, flares and coronal mass ejections happen. Sun flares and coronal mass ejections are giant explosions of energy and particles that can reach Earth. A solar probe typically looks at studying all of these from a safe distance so that nothing gets burned down. Solar probes are also carried out to predict successfully the flares and giant explosions that propel particles from it and can cause serious damage to any spacecraft. Center and has the capability to alter atmospheres of different planets, including Earth. Sun is a relatively younger star in our galaxy. Study of the Sun helps understanding other stars in the Milky Way and galaxies beyond. The various thermal and magnetic phenomena on the Sun are of extreme nature, so the Sun provides a good natural lab to understand those phenomena. These otherwise cannot be directly studied in the lab. All these studies lead to a better understanding of Earth, its atmosphere, genesis of this solar system, and the universe.
Well, as you know, complex war games and military exercises take many weeks to plan and many weeks to execute. There are a lot of moving parts. There is a great deal of detailing that goes into putting together a military exercise of this scale. And the Trishul exercise, by all accounts, is going to be a pretty extensive exercise. As India Today's Manjeet Negi has reported, the Air Force is going to be deploying, almost all of its air assets, or at least airframes from all of its aircraft fleets at the border areas with China, whether it is Ladakh or J&K or Punjab or Himachal. It's going to be a big exercise, but let's never forget that there is a great deal of messaging also that happens. The G20 also isn't something that was decided just a few weeks ago. It's been a long time in the planning phase as well. The dates have been known for a long time as well. So the Indian Air Force deciding to put up this offensive combat war game, military drill, whatever you want to call it, at a time when all these countries are going to be in India. There's still suspense over Xi Jinping's attendance, despite what Reuters and others are reporting. There's no official confirmation, but assuming that even if he doesn't come, the fact is the psychological effect of a vast military exercise on the China border at a time when the India-China standoff continues to be the largest military standoff in the world at this point of time, sends out a huge message as far as a country that will do what it takes to defend itself against an unpredictable and an unsavory neighbor that continues to have territorial ambitions. This is a country, remember, that literally all other, many members of the G20 have problems with, whether it is, whether it is the United States, whether it is Canada, whether it is the United Kingdom. All of these countries have their own individual issues with China, but it is India that is fighting China face to face, diplomatically and of course militarily as well. So this exercise, Trishul, by the Indian Air Force is one element of a game that India, in my opinion, has been late to come to, but is obviously playing it really, really well and playing it in a hard-nosed fashion. playing mind games, psychological operations, power projection, showing what the Indian Air Force is capable of, choosing to do it using air power, which the Indian Air Force and the Indian government know, the India enjoys a huge advantage on, especially in eastern Ladakh. So all of these factors go into, the subtle and overt interplay between two countries that could very well be at war. Thankfully, that's a remote prospect. But this war game certainly goes a great distance in telling both China and the world that India is not just any other country.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Business Today show with me, Sakshi Patra, here on India Today. First up, the top news we're tracking for you tonight.